Ember Witch. Book 1. The Lich. Volume 1. Black Tragedy. Chapter 4. Black Tragedy. September 19, 459 BME to October 31, 461 BME. Fragment 30. The Gemstone. Lilith shot up from her bed covered in sweat. She looked around the room with tears in her eyes. Her breath was heavy and her entire body hurt. She looked over to Ares, who had also been awoken by something.
I just had a horrible dream,
Lilith said after a long breath.
Someone had their body torn apart limb from limb.
And giant wolves ate the insides?
Ares said, interrupting her sister before she could finish describing her dream.
Yes, you had the same dream?
Lilith asked in surprise, but still calming herself.
I can't remember all of it, but yes. I hope that Syrya can help us. I can't keep going on like this,
Ares said as she started crying. Lilith stood up and sat on her sister's bed.
It will be okay, we can sleep together for a while,
she said, holding her sister tightly. Eve was preparing a meal for the morning while humming her favorite hymn. She was cutting a potato into sections when she had an image flash through her mind. A black knife covered in blood flashed, then disappeared in an instant. She felt a stinging pain from her hand and noticed she had cut into her finger. The blood pooling up around the knife. She pulled it out and quickly grabbed a towel to wrap her finger in. She sat down and began to cry.
Gods, please end my suffering, please forgive me for what I've done. I am at your mercy.
Gerald had finally gotten into the room the elven woman told him was hers and lay down when the door opened and an elderly man stepped in.
My son, I am here to assist you with anything you may need. I was told you may have had a few too many drinks, so I was stopping by to attend to you, but it seems you have made it to bed all right.
Father Haith said politely.
I'm fine, I'm fine,
Gerald said with a drunken slur so deep that it sounded like wine. Father Haith looked upon the man with warm eyes.
I want to keep you here until Syrya returns. Because she left in such a hurry, I do need to know what is going on. Can you tell me anything about what is going on?
Father Haith asked.
Someone wanted to meet her. They said if I didn't get her I'd die,
Gerald slurred out as best as he could.
When you sober up we will talk more, please get some rest,
Father Haith said, turning around. He closed the door and walked to the entrance, locked each lock, then placed a wooden brace between the door frame and door. Gerald looked around the room and noticed a bottle on the floor. He leaned over and picked it up, smelling its contents. Satisfied, he drank it and placed the bottle down. He fidgeted with his shirt for a bit, then fell asleep drunk and high. As the red incorporeal blade reached her skin, a blinding light flashed. Syrya blinked back tears and looked around a bright white space.
Am I dead? Was the church wrong about the afterlife?
She thought. She tried to stand up, but a pain in her leg kept her down. She was feeling weaker than before and a burning sensation was pressing on her chest. She looked down and saw the gemstone necklace glowing intensely. After a moment the white dissipated and reality came crashing down. The Firen had been blasted back and was struggling to see. Syrya took this opportunity to begin healing her wounds. She hadn't expected to use the gemstone again, but she was glad she kept it. She stood up still feeling weak, but not in as much pain. She dropped the healing spell, then shot 3 spikes into the woman's stomach, dropping her to the ground. Syrya stepped toward her with a limp and checked her pulse. She was still alive, but wouldn't make it without immediate treatment. She pressed her hands to the woman's body and focused her energy into stabilizing her. The 6 people that were inside the rundown bar stepped through the hole in the wall to see what had happened. The bartender stepped up and yelled.
What in God's name did you do to my bar? You're going to repay me for the damages done.
He barked out and Syrya turned to him.
Your bar was a dump. Bring that shit up with the city, not me,
she said angrily. The man was about to say something but decided not to make the obviously uncomfortable situation even worse. The woman regained her strength and began to stir, and Syrya channeled energy into her, knocking the woman unconscious. She stood up, pulling the woman onto her shoulder, and began limping away from the destruction. As Syrya came up to the chapel door, she let her aura drop and placed the woman on the ground. The amount of magic she had used during the fight and healing both herself and her attacker had made her exhausted to the point of passing out. She tried to open the door and found it was locked. She stood back, focused the last of her strength into her arms, and blew the door open with a massive force of magic. The door exploded into the chapel, breaking into pieces, and making a sound so large that it reverberated throughout the entire building. She collapsed on the ground and passed out. Lilith, Eve and Ares all sat around the table eating quietly. Eve's hand wrapped in a towel still stung as she had cut deeper than she first expected. The three women, all exhausted from a night of fear and pain, didn't say a word to each other, simply just eating and existing. They finished their meal and went to their rooms to sleep. It was the middle of the day, yet they all felt like it was 2 a.m. They slept most the day away, each having their dreams invaded by dark images and visions. Lilith and Ares shared a bed, and Eve clutched her husband's pillow to her chest. Father Haith was standing over not one but 2 incapacitated women and a comatose man. He frowned at the bruises, burns and wounds Syrya had, and even deeper of a frown at the 3 holes still fresh from magic penetration the fox-like woman had in her stomach. He would have to have a serious talk with Syrya when she woke up, but for now he would let her rest. It had been a few hours since she had broken down the door, and the drunk man had been awoken by the chaos. He still wasn't entirely sober, but it would have to do for now. Brother Jaren was busy cleaning up and repairing the door. Haith stepped out of the room and walked to Syrya's. He walked in to see the man sitting on the bed with his hands on his head.
Are you good enough to talk?
Haith asked, stepping closer.
As good as I'm ever gonna be after shitting my pants,
Gerald said with so much sarcasm it could slice the air like a knife.
Tell me everything you know. I'm just as confused as you are about all of this, so anything will help.
Haith said, trying to ease the man.
I was enjoying a few shots of my newly brewed rum when someone broke into my house, put a knife to my throat and threatened to kill me if I didn't bring her to the Grey Dawn. That's literally all I know,
Gerald said, recounting the events of the previous day.
Why would they go to you to find her?
Haith asked, taking in all of the information.
I don't know. She did buy a cask of rum from me, so I guess someone saw our exchange and wasn't smart enough to just follow her here. This was a year ago, so whoever it was that threatened me could have been waiting for the right time,
Gerald said in a tone that soured with each word. Haith frowned and rubbed his chin.
Is that everything?
He asked after a moment.
Yes, she bought rum from me. She brought the cask back along with another one as thanks. I have no idea who wanted her or what any of this is about,
Gerald replied, now more annoyed than ever.
I'm not accusing you, my child, just trying to get to the bottom of things. I will leave you alone for now, but once Syrya wakes, all of us need to talk,
Haith said, bowing his head, and left the room. Gerald fell back into the bed and rubbed his temples, letting out a sigh. A small boy who looked about 12 years old walked up the stairs, saw the destroyed door, and hesitated a moment before walking into the chapel entrance. He strode down the hall, keeping his guard up, looking around carefully.
Father Haith,
He called out.
Back here, my child.
Haith replied, stepping out from his room.
I have some letters for you. And what happened to the door?
The boy asked, pulling a handful of folded papers from a bag that hung from his side.
I'm still trying to figure that out myself,
Haith replied, grabbing the papers in exchange for 10 gold coins.
Keep the change. I'm guessing you'll spend it wisely, right?
Haith said, flipping through the pages to see who they were from. The boy smiled, exclaiming his thanks, then ran out. Haith pulled 3 pages out and looked them over. The name Black was scrawled on each letter in the same handwriting. He placed them down on his desk and unfolded the rest. City council meetings, newly established laws, and a letter of church announcements were all that accompanied the 3 black letters. Haith was tempted to open the letters, but he pushed the thought aside as it wasn't his direct business. He stood up to check on Syrya. When she opened her eyes, she noticed she was in the infirmary. She sat up quickly and scanned the room, seeing the comatose man to her left and the Fyron assassin to her right. She shot out of bed and immediately began glowing with a black aura. She pressed her energy into a binding spell that covered the woman, then collapsed onto the floor in pain. Haith stepped into the room to see Syrya crying on the floor. He rushed to her and propped her up onto the bed.
My child, are you okay?
He asked with serious worry in his voice.
I don't know, the wounds on the outside will heal, it's the ones on the inside that won't,
she said in a sob.
Are you bleeding internally?
Haith asked, checking her stomach in response to her words.
No, I only took hits to my arm and leg. That monster said. She said my mother and father were killed, she assassinated them for something I had never known about.
She cried, leaning into Haith, letting her tears flow down her cheeks. Haith embraced her in a caring hug and began praying softly for the gods to heal her broken heart. They stayed like that for several minutes until Syrya regained her composure. She looked over to the Fyron lying on a bed unconscious and blocked from magic and sighed loudly.
I've never heard of a Fyron coming this far west, let alone one being an assassin,
Syrya said, letting her body relax.
All people have different lives. Perhaps this woman wasn't raised with the rest of her race.
Haith said, pondering the events that led to all this.
I must ask, what happened?
He asked, trying to comfort Syrya as best as he could.
The rum brewer I left here stumbled up the steps to get me. He told me that I had to meet someone at the Grey Dawn or he would die. When I got there, she attacked me from the ceiling using magic to not only mask her presence but to freeze everyone within the building in place except for me. We fought for some time until I managed to get her outside, then she hit me with 2 spells and I fell to my knees. As soon as she was about to kill me, the gemstone I took from the Black family exploded in a blinding light. It gave me an opportunity to shoot a few darts at her. I don't know how or why the gemstone flashed the way it did, but I owe my life to the damn thing now,
Syrya said, trying to recall as much information as she could.
She said there is a plot by the Elven King to invade Valsilla and that she was there to kill those that had been sent as scouts. I am not sure if this is the truth, but she said my mother and father knew about it.
She continued speculating on some of the information that the assassin hadn't said but implied.
If she is right, something like that could plunge the world into chaos. The humans can defend this city for some time, but they won't last long against the fully trained mages of the Elven Kingdom. It would be a massacre unlike anything before,
Haith said with sadness in his voice.
She's wrong, the Elven races are still recovering from the Civil War,
she replied quickly.
Why would the Elven Kingdom want to invade Valsilla? Since Garden is one of the largest magical areas in the world, it makes no sense.
She continued, trying to understand the reasoning for such an act of war.
I'm not sure, but we must tell the king of this in case such an event happens. The people of Meridia must be ready if she is telling the truth,
Haith said, standing up.
I will relocate our new friend to my room. Please get some rest. I think your bed would make a better place of recovery than being next to your attacker,
Haith said, walking out of the room.
Oh, I have received letters from the Black family. Once you are ready, you can look them over,
he said, popping back into the room. It had been 10 hours since Syrya had been attacked. Her arm and leg still hurt, but she was rested enough to go over the Black family's letters. She started with Eve's. She read over it with a frown. She thought that the effects of the magic would wear off by now, but it only seemed to slow its pace. She read over Lilith's next, taking notes on each passage until she got to the scribbled-out section. She blushed knowing what had happened and read further. As the letter went on, she began to feel hotter and hotter as her memories of the kiss came back. She finished the letter with a smile and anticipation for their next meeting. Finally, she got to Ares's letter. She read over it, not expecting much more than what the other two had said, but as she got to the ink splotch halfway down the page, she jumped out of her bed. She paced back and forth in horror and excitement.
Pink, purple and silver? She can see magical essences that even I can't see. This happens only once in every million or so humans. Could she be mage-born? No, Eve stated that her family is all human. This is something special and could explain why the family is so affected by magic. She could be using magic in her sleep without even knowing it. Shit, this is bad, truly incredible but bad. I have to wait until I take care of this assassin, otherwise all of them will be in danger.
She thought, then set the letter down and made her way to the infirmary. She noted that the man had turned to his side and the woman was still on her back.
I can wake her up and get her to talk, but if she breaks the spell there could be more than just one casualty,
she thought as she started to attend to the man. In a flash his eyes opened and he kicked and thrashed violently.